You're listening to Idea Collider, a show that explores the world of asymmetric learning. On this show, I will sit down with pharmaceutical experts and business leaders to discuss how to embrace uncertainty and the different learning style that follows. I'm your host, Mike Rea. Let's get into the show. Excellent. So, Nedim, welcome to Idea Collider, the third series of Idea Collider. First of all, if you wouldn't mind, if you tell everyone, a little bit about you, who you are, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, hi, and first of all, pleasure to talk like this. It's a podcast, but as we always say, hybrid is nice, but having honest conversation is something that I value a lot. I'm the therapeutic area head for mental health, retinal health, and emerging areas at Boehringer Ingelheim. And I would say I'm working there, but I have the honor of being part of that team because it's a truly innovative area based on the huge unmet need you have in mental and retinal health. And how I came there was across many corners and crossroads because I actually started as a medical doctor and loved the job, would do it again, worked in a hospital, but then was always missing some of the business part, and then ended up in the pharmaceutical business since 2009 and worked in many different areas.
Interesting. I mean, I think your origins as a doctor and so forth sort of indicate a kind of interest in learning. And I think what you said has happened since then has been the same thing, that you've had this approach to, thinking about things differently than just accepting what's already been laid down.
Yeah. I stayed with one company for 13 years now, and the main reason is people, culture, and the opportunity to make a difference. And I think this is a key driver and motivator for so many of us, as you say, in any of the jobs I've had, starting with oncology, where there's so much you can innovate. It's not easy, but you can truly make a difference. And same when you launch into countries, when you see what type of an impact the therapies can have on the patients, and then you have the opportunity to launch that and make that difference. That's huge. And I think that the last position and the one I'm in now, that's exactly the key driver is, as I said, mental health. There's been very little innovation the last 30 or 40 years. So if you then have a pipeline and holistic solutions around the patients with those conditions, it can be a big difference maker. And it's also a very strong intrinsic motivator, if I may say so.
Yeah, no, I'm going to definitely come back to the mental health innovation sort of landscape because I think it's an interesting case study. I want to dig a little bit into, because your attitude to being a physician, your attitude to working in pharma, I think it's easy to be a doctor and rely on your existing knowledge, right? But leaning into things that you don't know is very different than leaning into what you were taught once in medical school. Would you say that's part of who you are, as well as as well as how you see life?
Yeah, well, I hope so. You would need to ask my wife; she knows me the best. But if I'm honest, that's probably the key driver. Is I would always say, don't ever be satisfied with the status quo. That doesn't mean the status quo is bad, but there's always more that we can do. And I think that's a key driver for innovation in clinical development as well, is, what is the unmet need? And then look at different ways of how you can address it. And I think that was a driver for me of, coming in and then saying, can we do things differently? That often would mean a disruption, like in my role as head of go-to-market, when we really did the digital transformation that truly disrupted the way we used to work before COVID, key driver. And at the same time, I think having, I know it's a buzzword, but having this growth mindset, open mindset is crucial. So I think always be curious. That doesn't mean I will agree with all the new stuff coming in, but to always be open and curious on saying, there must be a reason why many people are excited about certain things. So let's just check it out, right? Let's test and experiment. I think that was also a lot of learnings I got from that in the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah, but just experimenting.
Yeah, that kind of Jeff Bezos idea of invent and wonder is to sort of see where things take you. So Nedim, do you have a sort of definition of innovation that you believe in and that you apply?
That's a hard one, Mike. And I'm talking about the clear definition, because it can have so many facets. I think you inspired me once on this one. I want to be honest. I love this drive of, whatever you innovate should have some kind of an outcome, and obviously you want to have a positive outcome. So this, if I may say so, this return on invention for me is a nice description of it, because innovation can come across all areas. But I think if we talk specifically in the pharmaceutical industry, this return on invention and this increase of patient benefit is something that I always look at, right? Mm-hmm. Innovation should not be there for the sake of it, to say we just did something which is first in class, but we are not really sure about the value, and patients don't need it. I'm not sure that's the innovation, just because we invent something that's never been there. But if you invent something that adds value, as simple as it might be, that for me is a difference maker. And then you get a return on that invention.
Yeah. And I'll come back to what you said before as well about the innovation in the mental health space. I think one of the things that it feels like was lost was that understanding of the unmet need, at the same time as what's possible coming in at the front end is the understanding of how it might add value at the other side. And I think that return side, it has been undervalued, and we clearly had a golden period in the 60s and 70s and haven't had so much of a golden period since. What would be your thoughts on innovations, particularly as it applies to mental health?
Well, let me start with this general concept that you can never say enough of. Everything starts and ends with the customer. And it's the same in mental health. Everything starts and ends with the patient. And you just need to talk to people with mental health conditions and to find out what their true unmet need is, right? Because again, coming to the status quo, just because they are diagnosed the way they are today, are they really helped? Is that really addressing all the issues that they might have, all the hurdles they have in daily life? And, the clear answer is no, it's not. There's so much more we can do. And there's so little marginal innovation that we've seen in mental health in the last 30 or 40 years. And so coming back to the unmet need is what we strongly believe in. If we say unmet need in mental health is about being more precise and about moving from just focusing on the traditional diagnosis that's been there since the 1960s of how we diagnose and put a stamp on people, to true symptom focus. What are the true issues they have in daily life? And do we have therapies? Do we have also holistic digital solutions to help them address those symptoms? So that's why this need for innovation is so incredibly high in mental health. And that will go beyond pharmacotherapies, I truly believe. It's about holistic mental solutions that might involve a combination of a pharmacotherapy with a digital therapeutic. So I'll stop there, because I could go on and on, but I think this is the true need you would have. And, just to name one, for example, in schizophrenia, where there's not been much in the last 40 years apart from just addressing the positive symptoms. So helping with hallucinations and voices and being stable on that, but nothing to help the patients with the lack of motivation, lack of joy, lack of willingness to interact socially, or help them improve their cognitive skills, which often, threaten or are really in the way of leading a normal life.
Yeah, and so I'm interested in your expanding on that, because I think there's two things, right? One is classic disease definitions or descriptions, whether that was DSM-3, DSM-4, DSM-5. I think everyone just goes with whatever's current. And we all know that schizophrenia is not a disease, but it's lots of things under one umbrella. Do you think that we'll move away from those traditional categories to enable us to look harder at some of those domains?
Well, I have to say yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe in what we are doing and building now. So clearly, we need to move away from that. I mean, you summarized it nicely. Away from this, what we think is a good understanding of psychiatric conditions, focus on pills, focus on the DSM-5 indications, and then in a hopefully much more patient-centric approach, move towards providing mental health solutions, and as we call it, something which is then driven by precision psychiatry. So really more precisely addressing the symptoms that the patients have. The only thing is, and this is what we all need to be aware of, it will take time. Closing this gap between, understanding the brain and connecting it to the symptoms that the patients have, and also bringing the key stakeholders along the way, this will take time. And, as you say, it takes a village, it takes a town to get there. So this is not something that just pharma can do alone, or Boehringer can do alone. This is something where we need a lot of support on the side of regulatory, governmental stakeholders, payers, and obviously patient associations. So there's a lot of teamwork involved into evolving mental health and also destigmatizing it, as it is in many, many countries.
Yeah. So, and on that concept of precision, I think you alluded to it there. I think it's maybe it's a false kind of flag for psychiatry, for neuroscience in general, because I think people assume that precision is everywhere else. It's in oncology, it's everywhere else, but there isn't much precision medicine in oncology either, even, and that's probably the best case. Do you use the word? Do you worry about the word being used out there? Because it feels like potentially it drags us down this belief in biomarkers or in some other into some other area of science that we're not mature enough yet to go into. So, do you use the word precision yourself?
Fair challenge. I thought about it myself. It's not something precision psychiatry that not something that we have a trademark copyright at Boehringer on it. It's been there in the scientific community for a while. So I'm not worried that we need to continue at that level, but we just need to manage expectations and be very clear what that means. And precision psychiatry in this case can mean both. It can be a biomarker-driven approach, which is, as we know, very hard in mental health, to really have predefined patient populations that would benefit the most from certain therapies. But it is also just as much something where we are more precise in addressing symptom domains that the patients have. So let's call this, that would be a truly holistic approach around the patients. What is bothering you with the mental health conditions that you have? And do we have something, do we have a therapy, do we have a digital approach that could help that person improve, right? So it's really moving from diagnosis to symptom focus and being more precise there. I would say that's the other facet of it, apart from just a biomarker approach.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think a lot of people assume precision is going to take you down a pathology route, right? We're going to address the underlying, disease driver versus the kind of versus just addressing symptoms themselves, because that feels like a biological hypothesis then instead of a symptom hypothesis. And I think that the precision conversation often ends up over there.
Yeah, no, it does. And I'll be honest, I don't think you separate one from the other, because if we are honest, if we talk understanding the neurobiology of the brain, then looking at certain brain circuits that are actually controlling certain symptoms or are responsible for certain symptoms, I think that's where you will be more precise on addressing symptoms, but you will also be more precise in understanding the brain better and saying, okay, this brain circuit that we could, treat, address is responsible for this symptom domain with the patient subpopulation. So I think they do go hand in hand. So you would have symptom domain defined populations, which is much more precise, but that also comes from understanding the neurobiology of the brain better. I hope that was clear, but I would not separate one from the other.
No, definitely. Yeah. And going back maybe to that definition of innovation, the sort of return on invention thing, clearly you need an invention with which to generate return, but it's never necessarily a certain return. So how much experimentation is welcome in your world? Because clearly there's a lot of science has to be done. There's a lot of what if has to be asked within an organization like yours, or out in the world there. Do you think we get enough of that kind of undirected research that that we can pick up, or are we missing some areas?
I don't think there's ever enough of it, to be very frank. Sometimes we are in our own way of being more open and willing, all of us in the industry, to just partner, because we're all doing it for the same goal, to improve patients' lives. So I don't think there should be an excuse, a contract excuse, a process excuse of what that cannot be done. If we truly all believe and want to drive and improve those lives. And we said everything starts with the unmet need that you see in mental health, for example, of the patients there. But that starts with talking to those and going into the market and, just asking the right questions. But then ideally you go back all the way back to the start of the value chain, where you start researching, and then you take that unmet need and say, okay, this is what we want to address, and now let's test an experiment. And this is where these early research collaborations are so crucial between pharma, between scientific organizations, university. There's so many smart people out there, and on the pharmaceutical side, hopefully we can help with some of the capabilities we have to maybe scale and accelerate certain developments, but starting early, lean, and then failing fast and learning fast. I think that's a key aspect of a transformational, innovational culture if you really want to succeed. Go fast, lean, fail fast, learn, and then go again. So being agile and iterative, if you cannot manage that as an organization, and in this case also in R&D, then it's very hard to innovate.
Yeah, and you used the word culture there. And over your time, have you seen cultures that are opportunity seeking, that are growth mindset, and ones that aren't?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even within a company, you see it in different functions, right? You would say, is a legal function more agile than an R&D function? I do believe there's a lot of leadership responsibility in that. And there's a lot of company culture which can help overcome that. So I wouldn't use that as an excuse. I think you can be agile and open and innovative wherever you work. So that's why I've seen it everywhere. I have to say, proud to be part of Boehringer, where especially in R&D, we have a super curious, open mindset and the clear commitment to just test and experiment as early as possible. Because the later you get into clinical development, the harder it is to then test and fail fast. And in clinical development, when you go and also start the phase 1, 2, 3 trials in humans, well, this is where hopefully you have learned a lot more before you go there, so that you know what you're doing and that you can then truly add value, right? Make a difference for the patients. I hope that was clear. Yeah.
Yeah, Boehringer is an interesting company, right? I mean, in being private, ideally the timelines are longer, the risk appetite is different because of that. Do you perceive that, internally versus some of the other companies that you talk to?
Well, I would say where we definitely, what we really believe in is value through innovation and really innovation through our own pipeline. So this commitment to our own R&D, which also includes partnerships, right? Early on, that doesn't exclude it, but just really driving it through our pipeline and what we believe is one of our core competencies: strong R&D, strong research with the right partners. I do believe that that's a trait of Boehringer, and the private company part comes in of saying we so much believe in it that we also want to invest above the industry average of our top line back into R&D. And I think this is a key driver. I think, where's the industry? 19, 20%. This is where on average we strive to be above that, because we believe in the importance of innovation, and that comes from a strong research and development and from a long-term commitment. I think this is what you also get with a private company. If we believe in an area, we also commit to it, and then we also strive to deliver. Do we have a performance culture and still want to accelerate the development and really do it as fast, as smart as possible? Of course. Yeah. So I don't think it takes longer time. It's just more the R&D commitment which plays a key role.
Yeah, interesting. And in terms of that culture, the measuring innovation is always one of the big challenges. How do you know that you're getting it when sometimes it could be a long way away? In terms of behaviors and cultures and so on, clearly culture comes before behavior, but the behavior is what you get from that culture. Do you measure kind of, in terms of getting more of what you want, how do you think about driving culture and driving behavior within your teams?
That's a good question. I think where we can all always get better at is you want to transform, you want to innovate, but how outcome oriented are you really along the way? So as you rightfully so asked, measuring that, maybe I would consider two components which are crucial. The one is measuring the cultural component of and the mindset, and this is really regularly asking our employees what they think where we stand there. Are we innovative? Are we truly making a difference, and are we truly patient-centric? Because there's a difference between writing it down and really living it. So are we walking the talk? I think it's super crucial to have that speak up culture in the company to get regular feedback on that part. And the other component is really being outcome oriented on measuring the level of innovation we have in R&D, measuring the level of development quality we have with the compounds we are developing. So, are we differentiating enough? When we talk about competitiveness, and that again always comes back, are we addressing an unmet need which is truly there? Are we the first ones? This is where you connect then the whole R&D innovation with the unmet need we want to have in the market. And the cultural component is always the backbone driving it, right? Mm-hmm. Agile, transformative, and so on. It takes time though, Mike, right? It's not always an easy one, and we always need to stay at it.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think that idea, I think you alluded to before, that kind of opportunity-seeking culture is interesting, because the idea that opportunity-seeking can come from anybody in the team, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's regulatory, whether it's commercial, in terms of spotting an unmet need. I think the traditional linear view doesn't really work in that model, right? Where someone needed to have seen the opportunity early, and then the rest of you are just operationalizing it to that kind of agility that you describe, where anyone can bring opportunity to the table.
Yeah. Hopefully we are living it, and then it's up to each and every person to speak up when they see opportunities or when they see wrong behaviors. I think that's also the case. Is like, do we need to do things the way we've done it for 15 years, or is there a smarter, better way to get to the goal?
Yeah. So what's inspired you on the way through? Do you take sort of positive case studies? Are you looking for ideas from elsewhere? Is it within the industry? Is it outside of the industry? What do you use as a source of inspiration?
My source of inspiration, if you ask the question like that, are my kids. My twin girls are actually always the biggest source of inspiration. Kids are honest, straightforward, and they see through you, right? So you will always get super honest feedback. You think you're smart and you want to say they're 7, right? But they've been smarter than me already for 2 years in seeing through certain things and behaviors. So if you ask me who inspires me, it's them, because when I look at them and how much they can do out of small things and how creative they can be, right? Without even thinking about it, that's how they are, how open they are. They don't see the hurdle. They always see an opportunity. So that positiveness is definitely something that has kept inspiring me, and is, I hope, also part of my personality, the way I see it, really. Transformation and innovation always comes with the right belief and with the right vision, and sticking to it, right? And inspiring the whole team to drive it. And my inspiration starts with my kids. And then a lot of out of industry view. I think it's great to stay within pharma, but I think if we stay in our own cocoon, is not always helpful. So this influence through AI-driven opportunities that we had along the way, right? We talked about mental health, but we also have the retinal health pipeline, where AI algorithms in ocular tests and so on play a huge role, right? So I think that outside-in influence has played a crucial role, and we always need to keep looking at it across various industries. And on culture and transformation, think a lot of inspiration came also on how agile and iterative the big tech companies 10 years ago have really starting to lead by example, right? I think, and I say honestly, 10 years ago, probably even longer. They've been doing it for much longer in agile, cross-functional teams, breaking up silos between functions. It took us a while to also get there. But it was the other inspirational points. I think you always need to look outside of your own area to get challenged and inspired.
No, that's a good point. I was sitting with the head of R&D last week, and he was describing having spent 2 days in Silicon Valley just listening and absorbing, no telling, just listening to what's going on, because his view is the same as yours, that it's easy to sit in a cocoon and believe that what is possible today is the only thing that's happening, and then suddenly next week someone launches GPT-4 and you're or Google Bard, and you didn't think it was even possible a year ago. So I think remaining open to there being other things than the things we know already is really interesting.
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, and you probably see it yourself, how much inspiration you can get from the smaller, more agile companies and startups, where they only have that one idea they work on and one product they want to bring in, and just listening to them and the belief there and the level of innovation that they need to bring to the table every day with often limited capacities they might have. I think also that I hope we can learn from those also for us in the bigger companies to take that in and see how we can apply it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. That kind of resource constraint that sometimes the tech companies apply early makes people a little bit more focused. I just want to come back to that retinal health thing, because I think what you just said there was, it's not just about making healthier retinas, but there's a window into the body that you're suggesting can come from the imaging and so forth. Is that where I think you were going?
Yeah. I mean, I was more trying to lean into this huge potential you have in retinal health with the digital innovation, and I'm talking digital diagnostics, digital predictive biomarkers, which is key part of our strategy, is where sometimes we are not always good enough of how we generate and use data. And I think in ophthalmology, especially when you look at ocular tests and you look at access to data, it's crucial to have the right external collaborations. Again, coming back to that, it's crucial to have the capabilities to deal and know what to do with large data sets, right? So to have access to, in retinal health, to thousands of images, and then have someone smart enough with the right AI-driven algorithm to really analyze those and tell us more, connect the dots that we as humans might not be able to do. And then it's about collaborating with these key players in that ecosystem and say, okay, who has the right equipment to get the retinal images? We have the data. How can we make a win-win situation there and see how could we improve our knowledge in the disease progression there by just analyzing it. Often underestimated. I know it sounds, everything what I probably say sounds logical, but to really establish those collaboration and again, get some outcomes which make a difference, not easy.
No, I think it's a really interesting point. It's easy to get what you go looking for, and to be open to seeing things to the side is sometimes, it also needs to be planned, because it doesn't come for free, right? Yeah, I think the willingness to see things or to go looking for patterns. There was a conversation I was having with someone about his idea is that some people are good at noticing things, which means that they're open to seeing it and then to doing something with it. And I think that's an interesting idea to apply to organizations. Is, are organizations good at noticing? Good at noticing unmet need? Are they good at noticing things that are odd in the data in a kind of regular, systematic way? I think it comes back to what you're saying about agility and openness and growth mindset.
Yeah, and also sometimes that means admitting that there's certain things we are very good at, but that there's certain things where we might need the right ecosystem or the right collaboration to make it happen, because others have the right capabilities that we at the moment don't. admitting that is being capable of admitting that is important.
And you know, I'm going to loop all the way back to where you started. So, as a physician that wanted to do more business, you know, which is the business of the pharmaceutical industry. It's you know, a lot of medics that are also you know, where the business component is hugely important. You know, how much do you see that kind of business component being an enabler? You know, do you think we invest in the right way? Do you think we invest broadly enough in terms of experimentation, collaboration, early versus late?
Well, I would say medicine combined with the business mindset is crucial to make the whole innovation work in pharma, because having that and with business mindset, I'm just not talking about return on investment. What I'm talking more is the clarity and the focus that you need to bring every day when we talk about medical innovation. That has helped me a lot. So knowing of why an unmet need is relevant, and being capable of analyzing that and then going back into research and then working on how to address it. That was definitely, that came from my business learnings and the experience I got there, much more so than just my medical experience, right? So I think it's really combining those. But one thing which we might have not stressed enough is really the key to focus. It's very easy to go astray when you work on a hypothesis and on an asset and innovation, and you want to try out 50 things, but also to be clear when it comes to transforming the team, driving the mindset, and then also developing therapies to stay focused. And rather do one or two things, also maybe test those fast instead of trying to do 15, which takes you maybe 5 years longer. And I think that this focus in everything we do and clarity of the why and where we want to get has always been a key component in all of these transformations and setting up the right mindset across all teams that I worked in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's often an overlooked component is in decision science is the time component, right? If it takes you a year to make a better decision, is it actually a better decision? You know, if you could have gone faster and to kill or to progress. And I think the industry is changing in that regard as well. Aware that we're eating up time very quickly, I want to get to some aspects of your personal life as well, and what inspires you in life. Where you see the next 10 years, sort of taking you.
In terms of my own development.
Yeah. Where do you see the industry? Where do you see Nedim? Where do you see your 7-year-old daughter? Those kind of things.
Wow, where do I start? We don't have so much time. So let's start with the big picture on the industry. I mean, the industry will keep evolving towards what we discussed. I mean, innovation will still be the key driver, the key entry ticket for anybody working in pharma or biotech if you truly want to make a difference. And that also includes a lot more conscious collaboration with non-pharma partners if we really want to succeed, right? And I think also the hurdle or the level of innovation that you have to bring also in 10 years will be higher and higher, right? Because there's so much out there in certain areas. So if you want to say, I want to be first in class and we want to be a true difference maker, the entry barrier will be higher. And that's why I think we also need to be very smart of where do we need to collaborate because we cannot do it alone. I think that the whole industry will realize that, be it by development collaborations between pharma companies, be it by agile and lean research collaborations, which we have, and especially being by also partnering with patient associations, partnering with societies, governmental authorities as early as possible to really get the input into this whole development, because always coming back to the customer need, if you get that early on where you can still change and influence, then the outcome will 150% be 150% better and more value adding. So I think that's a big shift that we see in the industry, and that will continue. And we will see an empowered patient, right? Much more empowered and involved in decision making, which also starts on drug approvals, where they're now more asked about, is this really something that will help you treat your disease, address your daily symptoms? And this is something we need to address, right? And this is something we need to be part of.
Right.
When it comes to me and my family, I just hope that my girls and my family are going to stay happy, because it's a very challenging global world at the moment, with so many things where we forget to see the positives of where we at. So I think hopefully my goal is to keep them happy and satisfied and add some value to society. The whole topic of sustainability and how we truly transform lives across generations, as we say at Boehringer, and not just talk about it, but also show. That includes how we contribute to health sustainability, health equity. A lot of those topics will be very important for my girls. And a lot of those topics are very important for the talents we attract nowadays. I think, so this will definitely shift and evolve of also how agile we are as a company in really addressing the different needs of the future generations. They are not the same ones that we have today or that we had 10 years ago. There will be a huge, and already is a huge shift there, right? When it comes to be it climate topics, health equity topics, just plays a very different role. And I'll stop here. As you can say, I could go on and on, but
No, I think I think you've already half answered the question about how you're preparing yourself for that future as well. What are you? Is there sort of deliberate practice? But certainly that mindset is really a key part of how you fit yourself into that future.
Yeah.
Nedim, anything I should have asked you that I forgot to ask you? Anything that you want to make sure that we capture before we go?
Maybe the general question we could have discussed: why do we even innovate? Mm-hmm. Do we need it, right? And the world is moving so fast. But when I look at pharmaceuticals, I think, and this is also my takeaway message: without innovation, we would not be able to tackle so many health problems that patients have out there. And so we should never stop. There's always room to improve. As small as a disease might be, as rare as it might be, or as large as it might be, I think, believing in innovation and believing that we can make a difference, that's crucial. I think this can never stop. So that's why I don't think we have a choice to keep having an open and curious mindset and keep learning.
Yeah. No, that's what a good question. That would have been a good start for this. Was especially having come from where you've come. I think the awareness that there is not a solved problem actually in healthcare is really important. Right? Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Nedim, this has been a pleasure. If people want to find out more about you, what's the best way to find you?
I think the easiest one is via LinkedIn. I think open to get to know many people, as I said, not just out of the industry, but also outside, to get inspired. There's so many smart minds out there who truly make a difference every day. So I think LinkedIn would be the fastest way. Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to include your link in the notes. So Nedim, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk again.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the week.
You too, sir. Take care.
Take care.
That's it for this week's episode of Idea Collider. To continue the conversation, visit our website at ideapharma.com. Follow us in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcast. Until next time, I'm Mike Rea, wishing you great success.